welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs, Season 4, Episode number 10. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And it seems like forever since our last show, and that's probably because we've only played 3 games since our last episode, which was a really good one, actually, with Mike. Hopefully, Mike Agello, Mike in Buffalo. Hopefully, our listeners out there, if you haven't checked it out, check out episode number 9. In between, though, we've had the All-Star break, which wasn't really that exciting. I don't know. You didn't watch the game, Sil, right? I didn't watch it.
Yeah, no, I watched everything.
Oh, you did? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I did watch it all. I sat through it all. I guess the game was okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know that they're trying to, you know what it is, I guess, that's bothering me about this whole All-Star game concept. And I really hope they iron a lot of these things out for the future. And we will discuss why in a second.
Yeah.
Because it's that they are just veering away from I don't know, their brand, their authentic NHL product. It's getting too gimmicky and too discombobulated. Like, I know they wanted to do, and I actually loved the stuff they did on the beach. That golf thing they did was cool, but the way they went back and forth between things, they didn't do it as well as they did it when they were in Vegas with the outdoor stuff that they did. And there just wasn't any energy around that somehow, like it was like they're just doing this thing. And even though the skill level and what the players were actually doing was incredible, it came off as kind of boring, because I think the part of it is the players come in there, they're kind of thrown into this thing. They don't really know what they're doing. So it's, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, and then it was very fragmented, the way they were throwing back and forth to these things. And I don't know.
Yeah, that part of it I didn't like. That was in the skill. That was more in the skills competition, I think.
Skills competition.
Like, that's what I thought too, with that breakaway challenge, I think it was, which Mitch Marner was in, and his rendition of Miami Vice. Like, they had him, but then you didn't see, like, the next one wasn't until like an hour later or something like that.
Right.
Or it seemed like, so it that was weird.
Was more like an exhibition breakaway shot. Not a breakaway challenge, and not a competition at all, especially when pretty much that it was scripted 100%.
Yeah.
Maybe not even by him, like by Mitch, like maybe it wasn't even his idea. And Luongo even said afterwards that he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So that right there tells me that they are basically taking all of the fun out of it for the guys, as far as potentially being creative or whatever. And they're micromanaging it too much as well. And I don't know. They need to get some better people working on it. I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was really fun for everybody that was there.
Yeah, and that's what they say. They say that it's for the local market, basically. But yeah, personally, I enjoyed the mascots. I know you did.
No,
too.
I know. But the thing is they don't even show that part. Like, you hardly even see anything. You just see little snippets on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, a little bit of footage. But they actually could, use the mascots as more filler entertainment throughout the whole thing.
A little bit. Yeah, they could. They could definitely, because it's supposed to be for kids too, right? So the kids, I'm positive they would just love to see Carlton and his friends from around the league. But
it says something when the highlight, according to almost everyone, was Sid and Ovi and Ovi's son.
Yes, yeah, that, and I like the dunk contest too.
No, it was interesting.
Yeah,
but
in the skills competition,
they could have done it. They could have done it better.
Yeah. I didn't watch any of the game, but speaking of doing it better, they're going to have to do it better, because it's not supposed to be. It's coming to Toronto. The All-Star game is coming to Toronto next year. for 2024. So the last time it was here was back in 2000. And we've mentioned this, I think, the last show, that we didn't actually go to any of, well, I went to one of the events, but hopefully it'll be, well, I did hear that they're supposed to have something at the gardens, possibly. They're thinking of including that. So that'll be good if they do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That would be really cool.
Yeah. That I think we would actually go to, or think about going to, if the tickets aren't like astronomical in price.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with that. But you know, I I doubt that it's going to be very cheap. But
no.
At the same time, though, you want to have the fans there, so I hope they do a variety of different tiers of being able to purchase different types of packages, so that people can go to some of the events at least. So speaking of putting together a great event that is accessible to all, we actually went to the Leafs outdoor practice on Sunday, which was super fun and of course free. We got a lot of good photos and video, which we'll be posting on social media and our Ko-fi page. So definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all of our videos, and our YouTube and social media handle is LTL1917. So the open practice, that was great. First of all, the weather was spectacular. So that made it just really, really, really nice and pleasant. It's a really good crowd. It was nice to see the players up close, and they looked like they were having fun. And of course, the PH
the PWHPA. I always have issues with that.
PWHPA. Women had a skills competition prior to the Leafs practice as well. So that was also really fun.
Yeah, and the crowd seemed pretty into it from that part of it too, for the women's skills competition. There was like Marie-Philippe Poulin was there, Erin Ambrose, Hillary Knight,
Brianne Jenner.
Brianne Jenner. So all the women stars were there, which was great to see them. And then afterwards the Leafs came on and had a little 3-on-3, or not 3-on-3, 3 teams.
Yeah, and it was 3-on-3.
Oh, was it 3-on-3?
It's 3-on-3 tournament.
I know it was 3 teams.
Yeah.
At first I thought it was 4 teams. Anyways, it was who ended up winning? I'm forgetting.
It was Team Ontario.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Team Europe, Team North America, and Team Ontario. And of course, Team Ontario was like totally stacked. Yes. So really.
So they won, and I'm sure they had something, like the guys probably had some treat for the winning team, I'm sure, for them. And but we had fun. Like you said, the weather was good, so that's what probably made it even better, because if it was freezing cold, then forget it. I don't know. I don't know if we would have lasted that long.
So it was really, really great. So anyway, now it's time to get on with the show. And of course, we're going to start out with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Luckily, there haven't been that many games, so not too much ugliness happening right now. And then we're going to change things up a bit, and we're going to put our Ladies Talkin' Leafs highlight reel on hiatus for this episode. And instead, we're going to do a new segment, since it's only a couple of weeks away from the trade deadline. We're doing a new segment called Who Says No? And for the third period, we're going to be going around the league, and we're going to chat about some of the teams that have caught our eye as we head into the last 30 or so games left in the NHL season. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
All right, so the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like Sil said, there wasn't too much bad and ugly, but my good is that Austin Matthews could return sooner than later, which I think we definitely need that. And because there wasn't too much good from the last. I mean, the Friday night versus Columbus, it was a good game, but then the game prior to the All-Star break, the Boston game, was not so good. And then we had the game on Saturday night versus Columbus again, and that one was horrible. So we need Austin Matthews to be back, but we need him healthy, obviously, too. So I don't think I need to go on too long with that because he's our best player, and you can notice quite a bit that he's missing, especially on the power play.
Yeah.
Especially on the power play, and
And
just
I think
not.
also we are missing him defensively. The team
Yes.
defense has not been as good since he's been out.
Yeah.
And there's been other, stretches where he's been out in the past where you haven't missed him as much.
Yeah.
This time around, I think we're noticing that he's definitely missing from the lineup,
I
and
think
we need him back.
interesting. I think it's the commitment because he was there. The commitment is not there. And I think that's where his
100%.
leadership comes in, right?
Mhm.
His leadership to be committed to playing defense and getting the team to do that too. So
yeah, it's like if you don't have that guy leading by example, then it's a problem.
yes. Yeah. What's
All
your
right.
good?
So my good, like you said, we've only had really a couple of games really, and I'm going mostly on like the last two. And I decided to highlight JT this time around. First of all, he looked like he was a man on a mission coming out of the break. Normally that first game out of the break, you expect it to kind of be a little bit of a dud. But
Yeah.
speaking of leading by example, he really did that night. Like he really had a lot of power in his game. He scored 2 goals. The other part of it, nobody played great on Saturday, but he didn't shy away from the criticism. And he basically reiterated what Sheldon Keefe said about the lack of effort and, looking at why they, don't show up against some of these teams sometimes. Right. And
Yeah.
so I kind of thought he had a decent 2 days, especially given the dud that they put up on Saturday.
On Saturday. Yeah. No, I mean, he's had a really good season, I think, so far up to this point. And yeah, we need more of that from him, right? Leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, we need those 4 guys anyways. It's basically do or die with them right now I see it, because our bottom, until this whole trade deadline, I guess, until we find out what happens after the trade deadline as to who's here and who might not be here, or if anything happens, that it's really relying on those 4 guys to be producing for us. If we don't have them producing, then we're not winning very many games.
100%.
Unfortunately, right now. All right. And okay, let's move on to the bad. So the bad, I always harp on, and I'm still keeping track because, it was on TV too, as to not so much this weekend playing down to the level of the opponent, but because we were actually playing well in that first period and a half or so. But yeah, I'm not going to harp on that for the losing to last place teams. But just overall, the stats just don't look very good lately. I guess when it comes to, for example, David Kampf, he's not a scorer, but it's been 2 months since he's last scored a goal. And on the power play as well, you notice like Riley's goal, there was a stat that was put out to say Riley's goal on the power play versus Columbus was the first one from a D-man in 69 games.
Yikes.
And yeah, like that's going back to last season. Like that's pretty bad if you only have a defenseman like in 69 games score a goal in the power play. And I think Dave Ellett probably got more than that. Right? He probably scored more from us from the point back in the 90s. But anyways, our favorite guy there. And then, of course, my friend Michael Bunting. I don't like to hurt his feelings too much, but he's a little bit, he's not staying on the edge too well. He's going off a little bit and he's taking too many penalties. So all these things combined is just not coming out of the break. We just need to nip it a little bit and hopefully improve. We really need some production from that bottom six somehow. Like we're not, and this is we'll talk more about this in our next segment, about the trade deadline. But yeah, we got to get some production, and we got to get some production from the point. And Michael Bunting, he needs to be Michael Bunting. He can chirp and do all that, but he just needs to stay away from the refs, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I heard last year he had like a 15-point differential in drawing penalties versus being called for them. Like
really?
He drew 15 more than he took. And this year he's pretty much even. So that just shows you that he's being called differently and the refs are looking at him differently. So, but it's not going to help his case going off on them all the time. But there was one moment during the game yesterday where he was screaming at them from the bench and JT was beside him and he didn't say anything to him. And I actually think that's one thing that, him as the captain, if he just taps him on the arm and says, cool it, he doesn't have to say much. But somebody needs to kind of tell him to just chill a little bit.
Take a breath.
In certain moments.
Yeah, because he's not doing himself or the team any favors because we don't need more penalties because our PK is right now it's 14th, I think, in the league, which is not good. And special teams are huge going into the playoffs. And if he's playing on our top line with our top players, like he just needs to rein it in a bit and not make stupid plays basically and waste his time talking to the refs because they're not, no matter how hard he screams, they're not going to go his way basically.
That's right.
Yeah. So what's your bad?
For me, the bad that I chose to discuss was the fact that they hung poor Joseph Wall out to dry in the second and third period on Saturday. I mean, you got a rookie goalie coming in who's got a great record this year. Probably he's a little bit nervous to get his, latest shot in net for the big
home.
club.
I think it's his first home game. I don't think he played last year at home, did he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that because he didn't have, they played really great in the first period. That was their best period for sure. And so he didn't get a lot of action in that first period at all.
I think he had
then they decided
three shots.
Yeah.
I think.
But then they decided to stop playing in the second and third period and were very scrambly in front of him. So how could he even really see what the heck was going on and get a handle on things? So I kind of felt bad for him. And I thought that was, not really very good on the veterans of this club to let that guy just, I mean, it didn't end up being that horrible in the end, but still is not really nice.
They should have won that game. They had it in hand and they basically.
Yes, that is the thing that is the most important to note. They had a 2-0 lead going into the second.
And they just thought it was going to be easy and just forget it. And they just basically, Sheldon Keefe was pissed. After that game. So,
no, and I'm glad that he called them out and I'm sure that they've moved on from it, but it's good that he said something and noted the effort for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, we don't have any ugly because we only had the 3 games really. And, the All-Star game wasn't ugly, I guess. It was in a nice place at least.
Yes. Yeah. It was close though.
It was close. But, so we're going to move on and we're going to have some fun and get into some trade possibilities for the Leafs in a special pre-trade deadline segment we are calling
Who Says No?
All right, so this is how this is going to work. We looked through social media and we chose a couple of trade possibilities. So it's just, those kind of fantasy trades that people put out there or some media members. Just trades, that speculation. And then we're going to give the details of the hypotheticals. And each of us are going to give our thoughts as to who says no, the Leafs or the other team involved, or if we think it would be a fair deal. So let's do it. So the first deal we have is courtesy of one of our Twitter followers at God GHOD 29.
Yeah.
So he suggests that Toronto acquires Jake McCabe and Max Domi from Chicago, retaining, and I guess Chicago would retain 50% of each player's salary.
Yeah.
Chicago would acquire our 2024 second, our 2025 fourth, and our 28-year-old D-man Mikko Kokkonen, and also 21-year-old center Mikhail Abramov. So who says no, Chris?
I actually think that it's not bad of a deal, but I think it's a little bit too much to give to Chicago. I don't know for all that. You kind of have to look at because what attracts me is killing, as a lot of people have been saying with some of these deals, is you're getting the two things that we need: defense and a bottom, or a guy that can play. I guess Max Domi could play with JT, I guess, on the second as a left winger with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if Max Domi is a good fit for us. I don't know. I just don't. I don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jake McCabe, even though Mike, our insider, he was saying last episode that he's been injured quite a bit. But
yeah,
I still think
it sounds very much like he's Jake Muzzin light.
Yeah,
in every sense of the word, including the injury history.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say still, so that we're gonna say that Toronto's gonna say no, because I just think it's too much to give up for that type of question mark when it comes to the even though they'd be retaining salary and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake McCabe, I think he still has 2 years left.
Yeah.
All right.
And Domi, isn't he?
Domi's
he's
a UFA,
isn't he?
Yeah.
So then that's like he's a rental.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the Domi factor, I kind of feel like that's just, I'm not sure about that.
I think it's just because from his time with Montreal with the Habs.
Well, maybe, but the thing is that his dad, he's an alumni who was a very, very popular Leaf when he played. And basically, when his captain disappeared, he also disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see him on commercials, but you don't see him anywhere. And actually, you don't see him on commercials anymore either. But that's the thing, is that I don't know. I just don't know if we need to go down the Domi road ever again. So I say no.
You say no. You say no. Never mind the team say no.
And I agree with you that that's a lot. That's a lot to be throwing in. Like, I don't necessarily see that they need, a second rounder for that.
That's like 2 draft picks. And
I think that's
the
a
2
lot.
Players. Yeah. And I mean, we haven't seen, I don't think Kokkonen, I think he's pretty good with the Marlies, but I don't think he's had a chance up here with us at all.
No.
From what I remember. And neither has Abramov. I think we've seen them in the preseason, but that's about it. But yeah, I'm going to say no to that as well. All right, let's go on to the next one. The next one, we got this one. It came from NHLTradeTalk.com. And this one is Toronto acquires 26-year-old winger Connor Garland, and Vancouver would retain at least 25% of his salary because his salary cap hit is $4.9 million per season, and he has 3 years remaining. So that's Vancouver would definitely have to keep some of that. And in exchange, I kind of changed this a little bit because in exchange, I say Vancouver would get left winger Pierre Engvall and Toronto's 2024 second round pick. And what I changed was it was actually supposed in the NHLTradeTalk.com article, it had Kerfoot going the other way. But pretty much me and Sil don't like Pierre Engvall and the way he's been playing so up and down this season. So we put Pierre Engvall in there instead. He can go and have some time with Soupman there, Ilya Mikheyev, and in Vancouver.
Well, it's possible too that Engvall would be a better fit for Vancouver, I think, as well. They need a lot more kind of dynamic scoring, and Pierre Engvall, when he decides to, can kind of drive a play.
Yes.
And Kerfoot's a little bit more of a utility type of guy, which I don't know if I think they need somebody a little bit more exciting. And by all accounts, Pierre Engvall, he believes he's that type of player and that kind of person. So maybe in a change of scenery, in a place where he could be a little more the man, behind somebody like Pettersson or whatever, maybe he would flourish there. You never know. Maybe he would get his 20 goals that he says that he should get this year.
Yeah, and there has been talk, I guess, of Vancouver buying out Connor Garland in his contract. So in a way, we'd be doing them a favor if we would pay out part of the remaining 3 years of his contract. Then they wouldn't be paying it in full, basically, if they were to have to buy him out. So and we've looked at Connor Garland before. That's the other reason why I picked out this trade too, is because we've looked at him before, getting Bunting out of Arizona. We were looking at Connor Garland the last time. So
who says no to this then?
So I think it's a fair deal.
You do?
I don't know.
I actually think Vancouver would say no.
Yeah?
I do. I think that they probably won't want to retain the salary.
Yeah, but they're going to have to pay it all out anyways if they decide to buy him out. Yeah, and they'd have to pay him all. They'd have to pay almost $5 million for 3 years, $15 million, as opposed to only paying.
Maybe they would pivot on that. Who knows? Maybe they're not going to buy him out anymore. I don't know. I think that they would want maybe a little bit more than just.
Well, they're getting the player and the draft pick.
Yeah, but maybe they want another, a lower round, another lower draft pick.
Oh, right.
I don't know. I think that they might try to or want a little bit more than that.
Okay, so you're saying Vancouver says no. I say it's a fair deal.
Yeah,
on that.
Yeah.
All right. What's the last one that we have here?
All right. So the last trade suggestion we have, Toronto would acquire 33-year-old center Adam Henrique at 50% salary. Anaheim retaining, of course. And Anaheim would acquire Mikhail Abramov and Toronto's 2024 fourth round pick. So who says no?
Okay. So this one we actually came up with, or I came up with it actually, because I like the idea of Adam Henrique being a veteran guy. He's actually playing with Trevor Zegras on the line with him. And so he's on I believe that's their second line that he's on. And he's doing, he can score basically. And that's what we need in our bottom six. We need somebody that can score. We need point producing. So that's why I wouldn't mind getting him, and he's a veteran guy. And let's just say there's injuries. He's a centerman too. So as we're seeing right now with Austin Matthews out, I mean, not to say that he's going to replace him, but at least he has a bit more size than Kerfoot too for a centerman. So he can step up in that way too and take key draws. I think he's pretty good on the draw. And Mikhail Abramov, I don't know. We've never seen this guy too much, and I've always heard his name, but he's 21 years old. He's a center too. So I just kind of thought, why not?
Do you think that that's the prospect, that the fact that we haven't seen him anywhere really? I don't hear his name a lot, even when they talk about the Marlies.
That's the thing, that when you showed me I look back on the article that you showed me from the Toronto Star, where Haley Wickenheiser was going through all of our prospects. Yeah. And he wasn't mentioned in there either. She went through about 10 of them.
Well, then that's why I think that Anaheim might say no to that.
Yeah, they probably will. But hey, why not give it a try, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, these things are a negotiation. So you have to start, somewhere, and you want to start with a lower type of bid.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. That's why it's a fourth rounder. If they want a third rounder, whatever, we can think about it, right? Assuming we have the R20.
But I mean, that Henrique, I did look a little bit at his stats, and he's still doing pretty well. And I remember when he was with New Jersey. I mean, he's definitely a guy that Lou always loved, and was a mainstay on those teams, and has been a mainstay on Anaheim for a lot of years now too. So it's never bad to have, key veterans. So, you got to figure that, I mean, we did pretty well when we got Gio last year, not so well when we got Foligno. So maybe this one would be another good one for us.
Yeah. And just to let the listeners know, the reason why we went through most of these names obviously aren't flashy. It's not Ryan O'Reilly or Timo Meyer, but or even Barbashev, I guess, is another one from St. Louis that those are like the big name people that are on the or players that are on the trade boards. But we didn't really look at them because really Kyle Dubas's press conference last week didn't give us any indication that the Leafs are going to be going that way. And he really seems strong in the fact that he doesn't want to do the rental player. And we were talking with Sil actually off the air here. Just the fact that Nick Foligno trade really probably made him think twice about doing that again. Because as we all know, Nick Foligno got injured with the back and never basically made a real impression or didn't really do anything for us, and it wasn't his fault. Obviously, he got injured, but we gave up a first-round pick for that. So, yeah,
and it always seems to be that every team always seems to ask more of the Leafs than anybody else. Like I'm always, they ask for our first rounder, and then you hear that they were okay with getting like a second rounder from somebody else. Yeah,
that's
you
another
don't want to
thing.
sell the farm and give up on prospects. Like, obviously prospects are just that, prospects. You don't know what they're going to be, but you don't want to get fleeced either. And he for sure, Dubas, was tempering expectations. So I'm not saying, I don't think we're saying that he's not going to try to pull something big if he can, but it has to be realistic. It has to work within the cap, obviously, and also the future plans for the team. So so he's trying to not get everybody's hopes up for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered some of the trade possibilities for the Leafs, and now for a third period segment, we're going to go around the league to chat about what some of the other teams are doing before the deadline. So, Chris,
so
let's take a look at the Metropolitan Division.
Yeah, so the team, we're not going to go through all the teams like we were talking about this with Sil before. We could be here all night if we do that. But no, so the team to watch for me in the Metro right now are the New Jersey Devils. And I don't know. At the beginning of the season, I remember they were on a hot streak at the beginning of the season. But we were like looking at their goaltending and saying, they're not going to survive too much or towards the end of the season. But their goaltending tandem, that Vitek Vanacek, it's funny. He was on Washington as well. It's like, what's with Washington, the goalies? They're like...
they seem to be a goalie factory, but they give up on them too soon.
Yeah, so, he's been playing well for them. They have Mackenzie Blackwood is still there, and he's played lesser games. But I don't know, Jack Hughes is really... he's injured right now, but he got injured after coming back from the All-Star game. But they just seem to be... they're only 3 points behind Carolina in second place in the Metro. And I just think that they might have some jam. They might give some teams there some issue. That would be one series, I guess, because right now, I guess the Rangers are right behind them. I think they're 3 or 4 points behind them. They're right in between. So they would be the Rangers versus the Devils. That would be some sort of...
That would be one heck of a first series.
Yeah. And they got, of course, on defense there, they have Dougie Hamilton. Mm-hmm. So he's a pretty big D-man, and he's a power play producer. So that's who I'm looking at there. And why don't you go next with the Central?
So in the Central, I'm kind of thinking that we need to keep our eye on Winnipeg. Winnipeg has been quietly putting together a really, really good season. They have a couple of star players that don't get mentioned a lot in Josh Morrissey on D and Kyle Connor, who is like up there with the league leaders. They actually are really well situated coming up to the trade deadline as well. Like, you don't really hear much about what they might be going for, but I think they probably need a little bit of more scoring punch. So they might be looking for a scoring forward, and maybe a guy like Pionk could be one of the chips that they move out, even though they do really like him. And maybe possibly look at somebody like Puljujarvi. But I think Winnipeg is going to be a team that potentially could surprise some folks in the playoffs.
Yeah, and again, they have Connor Hellebuck too, right? It starts
Yeah.
at goal.
They have a star goalie.
Yeah, and that really helps them. And yeah, it's funny, they don't. It's kind of weird. It's like the first season that even nobody really talks about them on the Hockey Night in Canada and that.
I know.
Normally, it's like it's like they don't exist as a team. A lot of people they're focusing on Edmonton and Calgary out west.
Exactly.
And in Vancouver, it's just because of the craziness going on out there. And
but they're in
Winnipeg's
second
kind of
place
forgotten.
in the Western Conference, and they're only 3 points behind Dallas right now.
Oh, they're only 3 points behind Dallas. Huh. All right. Yeah, because Dallas is doing well in there too. So the interesting team too there, not to get too much involved into it, but is Nashville as to what they're going to do. Because they have
100%.
They have some players there too that would be nice trade possibilities if they would work, but we won't go back there. Okay. All right. So next up, of course, is our favorite team in the Atlantic Division. Who to look for? Of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're just going to focus on them for a little bit. And when it comes down to it, actually, because we're playing the Lightning in the playoffs, and they have cap issues just like us. So it's not like they can just, although I was listening to one of the talk shows and they were saying how their general manager, I forget his name, but that he's a very shrewd general manager, and he's managed to get he's kind of like Steve Yzerman in a way, basically take it or leave it kind of guy, and he doesn't, like, when it comes to trading players, it's not that he doesn't care, but it's just like if he has to, and he gets it done. But I don't know. I mean, I look at their lineup from the other night, and it's really, I mean, Anthony Cirelli is the problem, I guess, when you look at it versus Matthews. They always put him on Austin Matthews for whatever reason. I guess that's their checking center. And Matthews is just going to have to, Matthews played well last season, but he's just going to have to know that he's going to have to fight through that again this year. And then really, other than that, it's like the bottom six. It's the Ross Colton, Nemestikov, and Corey Perry. And then Pat Maroon, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and they have it empty actually at center. On their last, this is from the Tampa Bay website. They don't have a fourth line center apparently. But I mean, those names aren't fancy or anything, like to say they're big name players, but that must be Nick Paul, because he's not even in here. So that's who's missing here. I'm just figuring out myself. Maybe I should go work for the Tampa Bay Lightning and fill in their lineups. But yeah, so they're not names that are like they jump right out at you, but they grind, and they score. And that's what we need from our players, is to grind and score. Especially from that bottom six. And then the goaltending, they've won the goaltending basically. Like, there's no questioning that. Like, we'll give them that. But yeah, I don't know. I just that's the only difference I really see in them, and it'll be interesting to see what they try and do at the deadline, considering I think they're almost in a worse position than us. But
Ken Hitchcock actually was on, I can't remember what station it was, but he did an interview, and he was talking about the playoffs, and he basically said that in the playoffs, the top two lines from each team cancel each other out. Mm-hmm. So it all comes down to who you have in your bottom six.
Yeah.
So, when you mention that, it's like that is kind of how we need to look at things and how we match up there. And I'm pretty sure that's, what Kyle Dubas is going to be focused on as well.
Yeah, and they bring the nastiness in the playoffs basically. And right now, the way we're constructed in that bottom six, I don't think Sheldon Keefe has found that type of. I mean, they can't go all out now. Obviously, it's regular season, but they even randomly throughout the year, we just don't have that in our bottom six right now.
No.
And I think Kerfoot's the only one. And David Camp. I mean, he plays his usual. He has good size. He's a defensive specialist, let's just say. But we need production from these guys too, right? You can't have 0 goals for 3 months and play like he's been playing average 15 minutes a night, David Camp, for 3 months, and he has no goals.
Yeah.
So, whereas these guys produce, right? These and of course, we all know Corey Perry's always in front of the net and making an ass of himself, basically. But he manages to get the job done that way. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think in a way, Kyle Dubas is kind of waiting as well, even though you shouldn't really wait to see what your opponent's doing. But they're saying that each team, the Leafs and Tampa, were like watching each other as to what moves we could make or don't make as we get
definitely
into the
a chess match.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We're both in the same predicament, really. But on defense, I mean, the one guy that we did have, but he decided to go back to Tampa, I guess, for family reasons too, was Zach Bogosian, and that's the type of D-man we need now. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. So what's your
for the Pacific Division?
Yeah.
There's actually quite a few teams that are kind of interesting there, but the team I chose to focus on because I kind of want to see what they do is Edmonton, because they made it to the second round last year.
Yeah.
And ended up losing out to, was it the second round or the third round? Anyway, they ended up losing out to Colorado.
Yeah.
So, but you can't continue to have McDavid and Draisaitl doing what they're doing, also getting what you're getting out of Zach Hyman, and just not do anything. And now there's speculation about their interest in Carlson, Erik Karlsson from San Jose again, and it would actually take quite a lot to get him because they're very much up against it. They have under $2 million in cap space going into the deadline right now. But you got to figure that's a team that really needs to do something, and on D more than anything else. So,
because they have, I guess they have Darnell Nurse, who's a good defensive specialist, but they don't really have. I think their power play is number 1 in the league, but their quarterback is Tyson Barrie, who we all know Tyson Barrie.
And if they do go for Karlsson, he's more than likely the one that's going to be moving out because of his salary.
Right.
Would work because Karlsson has a really big ticket at $11 million per year, and he has a lot of years left on his deal. So something like 6 years left.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I guess Jack Campbell, we all know Soup Man there. He's been playing well lately. And I'm just trying to find the who they played the Oilers, but I can't find it from last year. There they are.
I think they lost to Colorado, and then Colorado went to the final.
Did.
So I think that's what it was, a conference final.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So because Edmonton beat Calgary.
Yeah.
And then Edmonton lost to Colorado. That's right. So, but I don't know. They have the 2 best players. Well, at least the 1 best player in the world, let's say, and then the second one is close to being the second best player in the world, let's just say, on one team. So if they can't get it done again this year, to get even past the second round, like even to go to the final, I don't know. I don't know if they have enough to do it still, though. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, that's the thing. Like, if you look at that, if your top 2 lines cancel out, really they are much more of a one-line team,
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like if
And is Eric
if
Carlson he's more offensive minded, right? So
yeah,
I don't know if they really. I don't know when it comes to it's a grind game again in the playoffs, but it's a different. They're in the Western Conference, which is different from us, right? I think our conference, we end up killing each other basically in the because we have the better teams that grind it out, and then by the time we get to the final, we don't have anything left. But whereas over there, it'll be interesting to see what because Colorado now is going to be getting healthier too. But I think Colorado, is their goaltending might be a question there again with the Gorgiev. Yeah, but so heading towards the trade deadline day, the Leafs have a pretty light schedule. So we're just going to go through that. This week we play the Hawks a couple of times. We play on Wednesday, and then we have the Habs on Saturday, and then it's a back-to-back. We play in Chicago on the Sunday night. So those games we've already lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets, so that's their one loss that's allowed. They need to win all these games. Doesn't matter if it's back to back or what, because at the end of the season, we're going to go through it, and home ice is important in the playoffs. Sorry, everyone, if I know I've had some discussions on Facebook, I guess, with some of our followers, and whatever they're saying is like being too hard on them for losing to these bottom end teams, but these points matter, and and yes, we know that last year home ice didn't do us any favors, but I would rather still have home ice and not play Game 7 in Tampa.
And then the following week they go to Buffalo, which Buffalo is another team that is kind of sneaking up.
Yeah.
So they're sort of on Tampa's tail right now. So anyway, after Buffalo, they're going to come home to play a Friday night game versus the Wild before they go on a West Coast road trip starting in Seattle on Sunday night to close out February. So,
yeah. And so, they'll be out west they'll be on their West Coast swing on trade deadline. So that's going to be on the road on trade deadline day. So I don't know. It's I'm looking forward to the games versus the Hawks. Could be Patty Kane's last time in a Hawks uniform that we see him in a Hawks uniform. I don't know.
He seemed to be pretty disappointed, that the Rangers picked up Tarasenko.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then that Buffalo game, I'm just trying to pull it up here as to where they're at. They're 56 points. Florida has jumped ahead of them 50. Oh, but they have 4 games in hand, Buffalo on Florida. Wow. All right. So, because Florida's been playing better lately as well.
Right.
But they're more at the bottom end of our division still. But yeah, so no, it's Buffalo is definitely in there. So yeah, that's our games in Buffalo, we generally don't have a very good experience there, but we'll see. Maybe we can change it up for a bit. So yeah, next show will be just a couple of days before the deadline day. So it'll be interesting to see if Kyle Dubas makes a move before March 3rd. So we'll have to see what happens that way. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is at LTL1917 to keep up to date on everything related to the Leafs. And a reminder to leave us a rating or review and let us know of what you think of the show. It's easy on Apple and Spotify, and it's important for our show to get more exposure as a source for Leaf content, and we thank you for taking the time.
And another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page at Ko-fi.com. You can follow us there, and if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. You can find the link to our Ko-fi page on our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages. And a very special thank you to a couple listeners, Sylvia M. and Tammy, who both made a donation to our show. We thank you so much. It's a really big help.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. And also, before I say thank you to our healthcare workers, I should have said this earlier, but if you have any comments on our possible trade trade scenarios, drop us a line, leave us a message on Facebook or email us, ladiestalkingleafs@gmail.com, and we can further discuss, because this is one of the best times of year, I guess, is trade deadline coming up. But thank you to our healthcare workers and first responders for everything that they do.
And as always, we thank you for listening. And until next time, go
Leafs, go.
Do you believe